Alright, welcome to my Sorare NBA journey. This is episode 1. If you don't know what my Sorare journey is, it's very simple. It's essentially just me walking through every single important step I make on Sorare. It includes all the wins, it includes all the losses, and just, talking my strategy, trying to be the best possible player I can. I hope you enjoy this series. Typically it changes from, documenting to what I do to start giving out more tips and tricks as soon as I, feel confident enough. And right at the very start, it's obviously just going to be more documentation, but I do have background Sorare knowledge. I've been playing Sorare football for over, a year and a half now. Was quite successful with that and obviously hoping for the same successes on the NBA side. The big difference, right? I know nothing about Sorare basketball. I know nothing about basketball really. Like a traditional British person, I know the big players, I know who the best players are, but beyond that, the up and comers that you need to know for this type of game, I don't know them. So where am I going to get that knowledge from? I'm kind of not. My strategy on this time round, right, on basketball is more of a data approach. Just, not watching many games. If they're entertaining, I'll of course go out and watch them just for the fun of it. But the journey isn't to, become a basketball fan. The journey is to become, this data-driven side of Sorare. Is it successful or is it not? If you watched any of the previous journeys, I treat this game almost like an investment. I like to be very prudent with my capital. I like to make strategies. I like to plan out all my steps to kind of put me ahead of the opposition, because the way I enjoy this game is by winning at this game, is by being the best possible kind of player I can be on this game. So we start off with episode 1 today on just all the basics and what I'm thinking, what I'm planning. Let's get into it. So I'll just show you my first kind of common cards. These are free if you haven't played Sorare before. I'll say if you haven't played Sorare before, check out the sign up link in the description. You can sign up, you can get a free card after purchasing 5, and it helps the channel, so yeah. But essentially, I only know one of my players, Luka Doncic here. I obviously appreciate he's one of the best up-and-coming basketball players, and at the moment, he's not even up-and-coming anymore. He is just an absolute monster. That's why he's my most valuable player. I selected him. And then the other players, honestly, I don't really know. And that's fine, For now, I'm not taking the best approach, and I just put them out. I did no research into lineups, but essentially it is just, a common reward at the end of the day. There is, really impressively, there is 1,000 free cards up for winning this division, which you can actually sell in the form of limited cards, and that's absolutely ridiculous. They have tier 5 here. They don't have that on football. It only goes to tier 3. That's just something for myself, but essentially, you can win something for nothing. So always trying to get involved in that. Watch the games if you can, but I'll take a look at my other team in case you guys are interested. But for me, don't know these players, randomly selected them. They could be injured for ages, but that's all I know. Big shout out to Mo Bamba. There's a song about him, very cool. Probably not about the same guy, but it's got the same name. But moving on, where am I looking to position myself? So in this basketball, my general thinking is you want to move up the scarcities as much as possible. You want to compete against the least amount of people. And of course, as more people get involved, the tighter the scarcity is, the more they'll have to pay to get cards off you, that kind of approach. And if any of you watching the football journey, you might be like, hold up, you called yourself the limited whale for over a year. You moved into limited cards much faster than anyone else. Why would you then say go up the scarcities and play super rare and rare? The key difference between football and basketball here is that, basketball, everyone's starting on the same page, right? Whereas in football, there were more rare cards, there were more super rare cards, and there's actually less limited cards for a short amount of time. There was also less people playing it. So you had, bigger chances of growth. You had less people competing in the competitions, and that changes as time goes on. But as everything starts on the same page, I'd be looking to move up the divisions as far as I can. But of course, that comes with the caveat: how much money do you want to put in? How much ETH have you got to deploy to this? And the answer is I really don't know. I treat this journey like I would my own journey, and everyone else watching hopefully takes tips and tricks and everything else from them. And what that is no one really knows how much they're going to put in. My first deposit into Sorare, I think, was about £300. I was like, that would be fantastic. That's a huge amount of money for me. And then, all the way in Sorare football now, I've got like a £15,000 gallery. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I will be going with the flow. If I'm not enjoying it, I'll take money out. I might even end the journey. If I'm loving it, maybe I'll move my full football team over to basketball. Very, very unlikely. But like everything else, it's just going to be, very casual, and I'll allocate more capital there if I'm enjoying it and having success. So getting into the cards, right, the first difference is scarcity. So limited cards are out of 5,000, rare cards are out of 8,000, and then super rares out of 100. Slightly different for me to learn, but nothing too complex, obviously. So I'm just taking a look on screen here at Nikola Jokic. If you haven't watched the journey before, I do absolutely butcher some names. It's part of the process. I hope you enjoy it. And we're just looking at the price graph, right? So a month doesn't really show too much. I'm looking at the limited card. Just as a sort of a gauging point, where are we? And what happened is obviously the first mints went for a ridiculous amount of money. People think they're collectible, and they very much can be over time, but that's not my strategy here. Those are for the big boys. You see the people picking up those cards, they are like, multi-millionaire galleries. So I'm going to stay out of those wars. It'd be fun to pick up some lower value ones, but like I said, my knowledge isn't there, and they're very illiquid. You can't sell these. Or at least you don't want to sell them, really. So yeah, it's not going to be for me. So general price trend, bit scattergun as everyone's trying to work out how much these cards cost. They kind of settled at £539 region, and then they've dropped substantially. They had a really big drop, and £270 to £242 region at the moment. And if I think of this and I look at it as a kind of general state and compare it to football, right? So this Jokic should be probably one of the best players, if not the best player on the game, right? But there's a couple of differences to Sorare football. We've already talked about the scarcity. What we haven't talked about is a kind of points cap. I think the points cap is so fantastic for kind of competitiveness, making it fun. You can't just have all the best players. You're going to mix it up. There's going to be random results chucked in there. But that makes the less players a little bit less more valuable. And I did see people speculating that this is the drop on, the reason for the drop initially. I don't think that is. I think it's just supply and people realizing they're not happy to pay that amount of money anymore for the same card. As supply goes on, this kind of trend will continue. But that's key for me because the top players might not be as top as they are in football. And then on the same side of it, it's like, well, there's 5 times the amount of supply. So I'm looking at this number of 285 right out the gate, and I'm thinking, probably not what other people are thinking. They're probably thinking nice time to pick up. I'm still thinking, very high. So I've gone out and crunched some numbers, right? And just looking at it, let's say there's 114 out of 5,000 cards minted at the moment, or 2.28%, which is Nikola Jokic's price, right? There's 5,000 limited cards that have to be, or there's up to 5,000, so I say. So there's not a guarantee 5,000 cards will be minted, but it'll be in that region, right? So it's our best estimate we can take. That's 416 a month, because even if they are gonna, only run for 6 months of the season, I googled it before, and apparently, basketball, only is active between October and April. So that kind of yellow section there. If it's only available for those times, that doesn't mean the cards only come out then. This is an assumption, obviously. This is an assumption from the football side that cards are minted all the time. Sorare as a company want to make revenue the full year, not just the first 6 months. So what that causes then is this kind of, well, when do you get involved with the cards, right? Because if I was to predict the auction rate, right? I would say it'd probably be about 500 in the first couple of months and then drop down for the last couple of months, because they always kind of keep the auction rate very same old. They're trying to bring a few more out in the first week just to get them on the market, people playing essentially. But beyond that, they stay static. So why have I caused the drop? Well, the drop is essentially what I think will happen when the rewards stop. Essentially when the leagues are turned off, there'll be less rewards given out, if not none given out. So there'll be less. It's kind of an estimation, but at the same time, there's 7 days to go into the end of October. We're 114 mints through. That leaves me just under 400 cards still to be minted. And I just don't think prices like, 242 will hold. So essentially what I'm thinking in my first episode is to hold off. Now, of course, like most people playing this game, I absolutely believe in this for the long term. I think basketball could be such a big hit. For someone like me that doesn't really care for basketball, never really watched it, this is the sort of thing that would exactly get me involved doing it. But that doesn't happen overnight. If you think about advertising, the first time you hear its name, right, you're not like, oh, I'm really interested in that. It takes a few times. Once you've heard something 4 or 5 times, you're like, what is this everyone's talking about? Let me see, if it's worth my time, and people start researching and all the rest of it. So when I consider that, I don't see people jumping in immediately. And the counter argument to that is, well, people are jumping in immediately. But my argument would be that the people jumping in now are either absolutely basketball diehards that have been waiting for this type of thing, or so rare football and baseball players jumping into basketball. And that is a one-time event, if that makes sense. That's not going to continue to happen. It's not like, every 6 months more people from football are going to jump over it. Like, there'll be a slow trickle, of course, backwards and forwards, but essentially the bulk of it's going to happen at one time. Something that will move the market will happen at one time. And that is one of the reasons I'm holding off, because yes, I think this will be successful, but it takes time. If we look at Top Shots, and everyone compares this to Top Shots, right? I'm not sure, I shouldn't say that. I'm very confident this will eclipse Top Shots. But if you're a Top Shots, holder, if you're a bag holder of Top Shots, you're not going to jump and just sell all your cards immediately and come over. It's going to take time. It's going to, you're going to be fighting your side of the corner until you realize, maybe I should jump the other side. So those kind of two factors, right? I'm not seeing this kind of jump in demand, not at the moment. It does depend on lots of factors. Is there advertising around the grounds? Is there going to be lots of partnerships and, let's talk top basketball players talking about it on their, say, Instagram? If LeBron James is putting so out on his Instagram all the time, yeah, we'll see this jump. But kind of how card prices go, in my mind at least, is a kind of slowly trickle down effect as more supply comes onto the market. And the kind of way to beat that trickle down effect, everything's staying the same, is to win more rewards than everyone else. Fine, I don't think that's too disagreeable. But occasionally you have these events where Sorare just pops off and so many people start joining. We've had it on football because Gary Vee got involved and all of the people that come with that. We've had it on football with, Mbappe coming up as a sponsor. We've had it on football where just La Liga's signed up or the Bundesliga signed up and all of those fans just get involved. So, trying to predict when these kind of jumps and spikes happen, it's near impossible, of course. But for me, I don't want to FOMO in straight away, because if I'm being prudent with my capital, if I'm thinking about it, these things take time. And if you're watching at home and you're thinking, I really want to play basketball, get involved straight away, because there is a trade-off. The less game weeks you have these cards, the less you can win, right, in terms of rewards. But I would say don't put all your eggs in one basket at the moment. Don't FOMO in. Almost imagine like a dollar cost average. Like, I'll get a couple of cards now, I'll get a couple of cards in 3 months, get a couple of cards in 6 months. So however the market moves, you're not really too affected. I think that's kind of the optimal strategy, but of course this is very thinking. It's not data driven, it's not facts. So, take this all with a pinch of salt. It's just how I'm playing the game. And why I put this video out, and you could argue, there's no real content in this video. I wanted to see who are buying. Sometimes the best thing to do is nothing. And I just can't sit at home being like, oh, I was a genius, I waited. If I didn't put out a video telling you guys I'm trying to wait. And at the same time, I could end up with egg on my face if one of these spike events happen immediately and everyone just gets involved in Sorare from the jump. So that's pretty much where we are. If you want to know where I'm thinking on the basketball side, of course, I want to run, data-driven kind of like matchups. Initially you'd think a bundle of cheap, low-scoring cards would be great and play matchups. If you can work out who's a good matchup, immediately I'm thinking strong offense mixed with a strong defense, and those kind of matchups, like a half stack. Stacking is essentially multiple players from the same team, right? So you could run a full stack of one team, and the benefit of that is that they all play at the same time, they all play together, they all have the same matchups, and it's easier to have more information on them. I'm thinking injuries and all the rest of it. And I like that immediately, especially when learning a new sport, because it kind of narrows your work. So I think I'll be doing that. And then in terms of the kind of non-data driven side, I'm a big Celtic football fan, so it makes sense to support the Celtics in basketball. So I'm thinking of just getting like a stack of those players and just all the rest of it. Whether I include that in this kind of journey is it will always be included in the journey, but whether I treat it as like, oh, that was just fun, I just wanted to see how those players do, or whether I kind of integrate it with my kind of like data driven strategy, it's yet to be seen. I hope you found this episode valuable. Obviously, it's slightly different. I know some of you probably wanted me to just get straight involved and buy up all the best players and work my way from there. But that's not how I do these things. I'm very strategic. So my strategic option right now is I'm going to wait. I'm going to see how things go. So I hope you found this episode useful. If you did, please give it a like. If you enjoyed this content and you want to see more, please subscribe. And yeah, I guess all the best to you. Cheers.